More grammar. So I wrote a post in which I theorized that post-positive adjectives, or at least some subset of post-positive adjectives, actually I should back up. So Wikipedia defines a post-positive adjective as an attributive adjective that is placed after the noun or pronoun that it modifies. And what is an attributive adjective? An adjective that usually comes before the noun it modifies without a linking verb. Okay. So it gives go to sleep little baby as an example, little. But you could say he is little, and then that would be a linking verb. In those tender mornings. You could say the scene, like something that you're watching, was tender. I mean, I guess there's some... Okay, anyway. I guess attributive adjective is not really central. I was just curious. But I don't know about this definition. Anyway. This contrasts with prepositive adjectives, which come before the noun or pronoun. And then this site I found, UCL, which is University College London, which is like a fancy school, said, we refer to these as post-positive adjectives. Postposition is obligatory when the adjective modifies a pronoun, like something useful, everyone present, those responsible. So then I took an example of this because I was not convinced by their example. And I said, everyone present voted on the bill. So present is an adjective, okay. But then I said, the senators present voted on the bill. And I said, that sounds okay to me. And you know, I should note, because this says postposition is obligatory when the adjective modifies a pronoun. Okay. So I'm thinking about this more now. And I'm thinking, well, you could say the present everyone. But you could say, I guess you could say the present senators. So in one case it's obligatory, and in the other case it's optional, right? And that also applies to, so I just said, I should know that the page seems correct in the description, that the UCL page I cite above seems correct in the description it offers of when postposition is obligatory for adjectives. And you could say the criminal is responsible, but not the those responsible. But I shouldn't say. Actually, wait. Did I get mixed up? I'm a little tired. Oh, I meant. It's like what was I trying to do? You could say the responsible criminals, but not the responsible those. Right, okay. See, it has to be here, can't be here. That's what this means. Obligatory postposition is obligatory when the adjective modifies a pronoun. Responsible is an adjective, and this is in the preposition before the pronoun, so it sounds weird. Whereas with responsible criminals, it sounds fine. Okay. I just got all mixed up there. No worries. So anyway, I was wondering if the actual principle behind postpositive adjectives is that they're shortcuts for not writing out a relative clause. And the example I came up with was, because the senators present voted on the bill, that sounds fine, but I think it's like standing for the senators who were present voted on the bill, you see? And that would apply to the pronoun version too. You would just vary the form. You'd say, everyone who was present. Because everyone is singular, so you have to change the word to a was in order to have it agree still. So anyway, so that was my theory. And then Kate said, I like it. I think you've identified what's going on. They've omitted part of the relative clause. So one question is how to handle these situations in which stuff is omitted. Do we create new categorizations with new terminology, such as postpositive adjective? So like, or do we figure, let me just finish reading. Or do we figure out the meaning of the sentence, put in what has been omitted, and just use standard grammatical categorizations, such as relative clause? Well, so like, I mean, we don't even really, like, postpositive adjective is just, like, it's not great. It's overly, the way I would think about it, I think, is if, in some cases where the adjective comes after the noun that it's modifying, there's an explanation for that. That it's standing for a relative clause. So it's not just random. It's not just like, oh, look at this wacky adjective, it's doing its own thing, right? We have an explanation maybe, and I have a tentative explanation. We'll see how it holds up to criticism. But like, so we have a deeper understanding of how, why adjectives can go in different places. We could still just call them adjectives, and that's fine. But we could just specify, like, we don't need terminology. You just say when the adjective comes after. In some cases, it could be because of this relative clause, this omitted relative clause, and so that's cool. I mean, relative adjectives are a thing, relative clauses are a thing, so we don't need to expand the conceptual categories. So, or do we figure out the meaning of the sentence, put in what has been omitted, and just use standard grammatical categorizations? Yeah, I mean, you can do all that. Like, again, it depends on what you're trying to do, but if you're trying to figure out, like, if you're curious, like, why, and you want to understand, like, why is this adjective here, then you can think about it this way and do the whole analysis. Or you could just say it's a flippant adjective and it's after, but it's fine because it sounds fine, and move on. Like, it depends, it depends on how deep you want to go. But yeah, expanding the terminology. Like, I was calling it post-positive adjective because, like, I found a site that was talking about it in that way, and so I figured I'd just roll with their terminology, but, it's not super great. So Kate says, I think it's better to do that latter. Typo, you meant the latter, I think. It's simpler, there's less fancy terminology involved, it emphasizes the similarity between the example at hand and standard examples. Regarding your question, I think that post-positive adjective isn't great terminology. I found some sites talking about stuff that way, and so using that terminology, and so I rolled with it. But overall, I'd say that the approach to take is something like this. If you want to have an understanding of some cases where adjectives come after, of at least some cases where adjectives come after the nouns they modify, then we have a tentative explanation as to why that's okay. You don't have to take it as an arbitrary fact that, well, am I really responding to Kate's question? We can talk about the issue in terms of standard. So then Anne replies, well, let me fix this. Anne replies and says, or we could just call them adjectives. I don't think we need to label adjectives differently depending on whether they are before or after the nouns they modify. Yeah, I agree we don't need a special label. If we want to talk about the issue, we can just explain it simply. E.g., why are there cases where adjectives come after the noun they modify instead of before? What's going on when that happens? Note that adjectives that come before nouns could also be replaced by relative clauses. Examples. The red ball, the ball that is red. The happy child, the child that is happy. Yeah, I mean, that's fair to bring up, although, yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. It's fine to bring up. Okay. The following page gives a historical reason why some adjectives come after the nouns they modify. It doesn't apply to the examples that Justin gave, though. Okay, let's see. Nearly 1,000 years ago, it's always a Norman conquest. The Norman conquest had a profound effect not only on the English nation, but also on the English language. One of the manifestations of this event is the survival of the postpositive adjective. Oh, that's kind of interesting. In many languages, including French, a modifying word follows the word it modifies, such as in the phrase ressource naturelle, natural resources. Because of Norman French's influence on law, politics, and other matters sovereign, we still sometimes use this form in the mongrel mélange that is the English language. Thus, Attorney General, as well as Secretary General and Postmaster General, which refers not to a military rank. Oh, this is... Oh, I see what they're doing. Because this... I thought this was a sentence fragment, but now I see it's... This use of thus... This is fancy, but... This use of thus basically means like, therefore, comma, consider, and then the thing that follows. Like, therefore you consider, like, the imperative, and then all this stuff. Yeah, that's fine. It gave me pause because I'm like, where's the verb? What happened here? Is daily writing tips writing fragments? Because that would be kind of sad. But no, it's fine. Alright, let's start again. Thus, Attorney General, as well as Secretary General and Postmaster General, which refers not to a military rank, but to the office holder's generic scope of responsibility. Thus, Court-Martial, which literally pertains to a court of a martial or warlike nature, but practically applies to a military court in wartime or peacetime. Thus, heir apparent and knight errant, artifacts of feudal system. I think they needed a the there. Note that compound form is inconsistent. Open compounds prevail, but some hyphenated forms persist. When in doubt, look up the term. If certain, look up the term anyway. Not the worst advice. A bit tired, so a short video for today.